Since the turn of the millennium, a number of studies have returned findings showing a decline in kids who can tell the time from an analog display. The two biggest justifications are connected: the popularity of digital displays combined with the lack of analog ones. I think this is a concern for a couple of reasons. I don't like the idea of analog watches becoming less popular because a big portion of future generations can't read them. And while it might be like standing on the shore and screaming at the tide not to come in, I think kids being reliant on smartphones to tell the time isn't a good thing either. It's not like they need any justification to get distracted by them as it is. The thing is, if you want your kids to learn to tell the time, a lot of watches designed for kids are utterly abysmal. There's a balancing act there though. You want to give them something inexpensive because kids have a habit of breaking and losing things, but you don't want to give them something so awfully made that it doesn't last even if they do try to take care of it. So to try and help, I've put together a list of 10 watches aimed at kids that tread that fine line. I've only featured each brand on the list once and kept everything under the strict budget of $250. With all that said, let's get into the video. Tikkers are a UK-based company specialising in inexpensive watches that help children to learn to tell the time. They do make some smartwatch-esque pieces, but I wouldn't really recommend them for their intended younger audience as they're just too big and bulky. While she did manage to break it eventually, an analog Tikkers model is the first watch I ever bought for my daughter. Having to and past labelled on the dial alongside the supporting colour-coded minute subdial is a really helpful visual way of getting younger children to practice reading the time. They've got some nice pieces in collaboration with UK charities as well, so really not bad at all for such a low financial outlay. While Citizen do produce some Disney-themed watches, they aren't really intended for kids and have adult sizing. Their subsidiary brand Q&Q do however have a kids range. Now in truth, they don't look like much more than brightly decorated children's watches, and that's because that's exactly what they are. You could absolutely pick up watches that look very similar for less than the $25 asking price here. However, if you are going to go down the inexpensive if they break it we can buy another route, I do think it's important to know who you're buying from. Q&Q are not going to cut corners and make use of potentially toxic or hazardous materials, precisely because they have that brand oversight from Citizen. That makes these pieces far more trustworthy than nameless models that may look similar. Smiggle is a store that first began in Australia in the early 2000s but has slowly been making its way around the world. It specialises in fun school and stationery supplies and does produce a range of kids' watches. The strength of these particular pieces is in their design and therefore engagement. These are really strong watches in terms of their theming, and regardless of its quality and price, in my opinion, no watch is worth anything if no one is going to wear it. The light up functionality does work on the dial, but having it glow through the case back as well is another fun way of trying to make this range appeal to children. There are two main model types within the Timex Time Machine model range, a series of digital and a series of analog display watches. While I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the digital pieces, I think some of them are actually quite stylish, given the prevalence of digital time displays on tablets, smartphones, PCs and laptops. I think they're far less valuable for learning to tell the time. The analog displays, on the other hand, are a great choice, as not only are the displays very legible with easy to read hour and minute tracks, but you can buy some models that even label the hour and minute hand. If you haven't heard of Flik Flak before, they are a brand formed in 1987 in Biel, Switzerland, and are the kids' watch offering from the Swatch Group. Essentially, you can think of this as the expertise and cost saving of Swatch, applied in a way that is tailored towards getting kids to learn how to tell the time. The end result is a wide range of styles and designs that are designed to be durable, inexpensive, educational and engaging. A Flik Flak would be my personal choice as a very first watch for a child, availability allowing, though they do also make models advertised towards children as old as 10. As an aside, you can also buy personalised pieces with messaging and names on watch bracelets to give a sense of ownership. While we've just spent time talking about Flik Flak, Swatch themselves do also make watches that I think are perfect for slightly older children. The Bambino in particular is literally designed as a nostalgic nod for adults to relive their childhood, but at 31.4mm in diameter, it's also perfectly sized and designed for actual children too. It's lightweight, thin, affordable, legible and colourful. Plus it comes from quite literally the biggest watchmaking apparatus on earth, and with that comes a great deal of quality control. I do recognise that these watches are not aimed specifically at children. Rather, they are aimed at fans of the Japanese kawaii aesthetic. But regardless of the initial design intention, they have a number of features that make them suitable for kids. They have a colour gradient rotating dial with heart motif cutaways, so every day at the date changeover, the colours on the watch itself also change. Though there's an element of what colours do I get today? The watches are of course shockproof, but more than that they have detachable bezels, which allow for easy replacement or customization, and beneath each bezel is another hidden heart motif. These features might not seem like much, but having other reasons for kids to engage with timepieces and hold their interest can be an important consideration. There are so many absolutely abysmal smartwatches out there, and the ones designed for kids have to be among the worst. I do recognise though that some kids may simply want a smartwatch and not be interested in a traditional alternative. If you find yourself in that position, going for a recognised brand would be my advice. I think the pick of the bunch is the Garmin Vivofit Jr 3. It's more expensive than a lot of kids' smartwatch offerings, but in reality that's just because it isn't junk. It has working smartwatch functionality that you might expect from an adult's model, but it's presented through a cartoonised bespoke smartphone application. The SEIKO School Time Selection range launched back in 2019, and it's a bespoke line aimed at elementary school aged children. A lot of time went into making these pieces as friendly and approachable as possible. One example of this is the repeat printing process SEIKO have used on the Arabic numerals to make them raised and curved slightly at the edges, which alongside the font itself makes for a rounded, easy to read and child-friendly dial. The glass is anti-reflective, so the time is easier to read in more conditions. The crown has been designed to be easy to use with small fingers, and the 31.5mm sizing is based on the average wrist size of its target audience. I think it's awesome SEIKO put so much effort into making these watches. It's just a shame that it's a JDM range, so you'd have to import one to be able to gift it. I feel sad to admit it, but actually the most success I've had to get my own daughter learning to tell the time is with a smartwatch. Specifically, I bought her an Apple Watch, but an earlier release of the SE 40mm range. She's 10 now and it still wears quite large on her, but there's no getting away from it. It's the watch she's worn the most and the one that's had the biggest impact on her ability to tell the time. My only rule with the watch was that she was only allowed to have it if she promised that the dial she chose would be an analogue display. The Mickey and Minnie dials are invaluable at selling this idea, to be honest. You can get some pretty good protective cases on a budget too, bringing the whole thing in just under $250. The nice thing about this is that the older she gets, the more appropriate the watch actually becomes, rather than most kids' watches where they're designed to be outgrown. I want to be clear though, I would absolutely not recommend buying a budget kids smartwatch. Most of them are absolutely dreadful, and as a final aside, having an Apple Watch linked to the Find My app is really helpful, and location tracking might also be something that is appealing to you. So there we have it, what I believe to be the 10 best kids watches available below $250. Now I am a parent and my daughter has broken a fair few watches, and I've made some choices on this list based in part on what has survived. If you have any horror or success stories around not only watches for kids but ways in which you've managed to get them engaged in telling the time, I'd love to discuss them with you in the comment section below to make this a more complete and helpful resource. I'll just finish by saying that while I don't expect this video is going to be hugely popular given how niche it is, I do hope it's useful. One Google search for kids watches will expose you to an absolute cavalcade of low price, low quality garbage. So if this video helps one person avoid purchasing any of that, I'm already happy. As ever, thank you for your time. If you've enjoyed what you've seen or found it informative, consider dropping the video a like and subscribing for more content like this in future.